This is Coffee with God, and I am Father Jose. Let us begin this day with the Word of God and a short reflection.
The reading from the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 4, verses 1 to 5 and 11. The passage is taken from the Message version of the Bible. For as long, then, as that promise of resting in Him pulls us on to God's goal for us, we need to be careful that we're not disqualified. We receive the same promises as those people in the wilderness, but the promises didn't do them a bit of good because they didn't receive the promises with faith. If we believe, though, we'll experience that state of resting, but not if we don't have faith. Remember that God said, "Exasperated, I vowed, they'll never get where they're going, never be able to sit down and rest." God made that vow, even though He'd finish His part before the foundation of the world. Somewhere it's written, God rested the seventh day, having completed His work. But in this other text He says, they'll never be able to sit down and rest, so this promise has not yet been fulfilled. Those early ones never did get to the place of rest because they were disobedient, and at the end of the journey they'll surely rest with God. So let's keep at it and eventually arrive at the place of rest, not drop out through some sort of disobedience.
Reflections on the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 4, verses 1 to 5 and 11. The writer of the letter to the Hebrews warns his readers not to miss the opportunity of entering into God's rest. The term rest given by God is the focal theme of today's first reading. God's promise of rest for His people is long lasting, and it has been renewed in different ages. By embracing faith in God, we have taken the first step toward making the promised rest our own. It was offered to the Israelites of old, but they missed it through disobedience and unbelief. The promise of rest given to the Israelites is good news for them. The promised land was seen as the place of rest that God provided for His people. But the Israelites in the desert had failed to use the opportunity when they had it. See the example of Moses himself and many others who doubted the promise of God and could not enter the land of Canaan. The comparison in the letter to the Hebrews is between the Israelites and the Christians. The Israelites doubted the word of God and did not enter the place of rest, which for them was the promised land. But God's promise cannot remain unfulfilled, so it now applies to us Christians who are invited to enter into a very different promised land of unalterable and unending happiness, God's eternal rest. In the past, many did not benefit from God's promise because they had closed their ears to His message. Our goal in life is to experience that eternal place of rest, face to face with our loving God. We shall always remember that the promise of rest is not something about the future, but it is about the now. Let us be open to the promise of God that we shall remain in His rest, always united with Him. Do we spend our time in ways that are creative and nurturing our both body and spirit?